Explain the strategies for handling the errors in and handling exceptions in the ASP.NET Core. So there are so many ways we can use in .NET Core. As I mentioned, we can create our own custom middleware, and that middleware should handle all the errors. So once the execution would be there, one of your middleware is performing the global error handling, that can be done. And then we can use the try catch, that is a localized error handling. Then we can use the exceptions filter in the same manner as we are using the routes or other things. We should have the filters over there, and that is also a mechanism for creating the exceptions filters. And then the descriptive error throws the specific section with the clean message to the better debugging, so that can also be done. And the logging is the actual mechanism which will give you all those type of errors which occurred without your application running. So for example, you started your application and it crashed automatically, but you don't know what happened. So you can go to your logging and see whether what type of error is there. So those errors are being stored in the logging file. So these are the different ways in which we can have our exceptions can be monitored, or we can see how the exceptions can be handled. Then comes how to implement the custom model binding in ASP.NET Code. In my previous video, I have mentioned that we have the models, and those models are being binded with the view model, and data is being transferred from the front end to our controller, and vice versa can be done. But we can have a custom model binding as well. So create a custom model binding class, implement the iModel binder is the interface which need to be implemented, and we need to override one of the method, that is a bind model async, to handle the specific model binding. And then the XX request data uses the provider context. The context is the thing is the request coming to you. From there we can access the data, parse and map the data to the custom model property, register your bundle in the configuration service, and add MVC options. So these are the configuration. Parsing, till parsing we have covered, but definitely we need to register that and specify the model type and binder type in the controller action or the razor pages. So custom model binding can also be done. So in those custom model binding, what we can do is we are getting the conventional model in a controller, and then we are creating a separate file that is implemented the iModel binder. And the model binder async is a method in which we are binding, sort of mapping our custom model with whatever the model is receiving the data. So once that data is getting, we wanted to manipulate some of the things on that. So for those reasons we need to have a custom model prepared. So this is a very important question as well. Then come how to write the custom ASP.NET Core middleware for this specific functionality. As I mentioned, the middleware, so we can have our own middleware in which all the different logics can be implemented. So for those reasons, we need to have our custom middleware prepared. But there are something which we need to know before creating the middleware. To create the custom ASP.NET Core middleware, you need two key things to implement. As I mentioned previously, I middleware should be interface over there, which need to be implemented. The class constructor takes the request delegate, which define your next step in the request pipeline. See, pipeline is there, but what the pipeline would do, it need to get the information and pass it to the other middleware which is coming next to it. So for that we have to have a request delegate as a parameter in our constructor that will get the information, perform something whatever it wanted to do, and then pass the result to the next pipeline. So for that, request delegate need to be there. In the invoke method, access the HTTP context to perform your desired functionality. HTTP context is a key player here. So HTTP context would have the request and all the data available for that, and whatever you wanted to do, you can do that. Remember to call the underscore next to continue the process, otherwise it will stop, it will be terminated. So we need to call the underscore next, then it will be moved to the next middleware, because we are injecting our own middleware in between other middleware. So it should be moved forward, and if we are not calling the underscore next, it will stop there. You can then modify the request response object and log the information, or even even short circuiting the pipe. Short circuiting is a concept. Let me elaborate that, because that can also be asked. Short circuiting is a mechanism in which we can terminate a request in between. We don't want it to execute from fourth to fifth middleware, for example. Till fourth we are executing, and on the certain conditions we don't want to execute the fifth one. So in those cases, the short circuiting would be in play, and that short circuiting will stop and terminate till the middleware 4 is called and fifth would not be calling. So in those cases we can manipulate on our objects. This opens to endless possibility for the custom task like authorization, logging, or request manipulation in our application, .NET Core application. So this is how we can implement the custom middleware. It's a very much important question, and definitely it will give you interviewer the insight that you have a grip on .NET Core. Then comes 12 question that explain how to access the HTTP context object with an ASP.NET Core application. So we can access it using the dependency injection. This is the perfect approach. With the dependency injection, we can have the HTTP context, and HTTP context have all those requests available. And the other way is direct access in the controller and in the user pages. You can directly access HTTP context as a property. So you will get the HTTP context, and from the HTTP context you can get the request, and from the request you can do whatever you wanted. So there are two ways to get the HTTP context object, one using dependencies and the other would be use the direct access. Then come the 13th question. What is the change token in ASP.NET Core development? So the change token in ASP.NET Core is a lightweight, efficient mechanism for detecting the changes to the resources or the piece of data. See, data is there, and data definitely have to have some mechanism to update that, to add the data, or so many other things are there. But if you want to track the changes, then the change token would be in play. So that is a mechanism to detect the changes in the data. It's like a mini observer that sits on your data and silently waits for any modification. So we have first name, last name, for example, in a data, and the first name has been changed to ABC to DEE, for example. So those changes would be directed by the change token. When somebody change, the token raise and even notify you to take the appropriate action. So this is what we have in .NET Core, but there are so many other ways to track that. We can have all those tracking with entity framework, or there are so many other things we can do. But top of that, if we specifically talk about the .NET Core change token, then the change token, I would say a mini observer which will observe the change, raise the event, and on top of that raised event we can detect the changes, or we can do whatever we wanted to do that. Okay, then comes how can ASP.NET application be used and accessed from a class library project? So class library project is a different project, and ASP Note application APIs, is a different application. So how both can communicate to each other? Very important question. So the answer would be the target the application core shared framework would be the appropriate way. This ensured your library shares the same base framework as an ASP.NET Core application, allowing seamless API usage. So we can have a shared framework where both the API and the console application can communicate, and it will be communicated that both can share the framework themselves, or reference the relevant NuGet package for specific ASP.NET Core functionality. Install the corresponding NuGet package within your class library project. The other way is we can create our own private NuGet package, and that NuGet package can be installed in the console application, and that console application here can use it. So there are two ways. One, with the shared framework, and the other is using the NuGet package. We have the provision to make the NuGet package, private NuGet package from our application that is provisioned in .NET Core. So we can do that, and we can import that NuGet package in console application, and it would work. Then comes explain the open web interface for .NET Core, its relationship to the ASP.NET Core. So the hosting foundation ASP.NET Core application is built on the top of the OWIN, meaning it adheres to the on interfaces for communication with the web services. So there is a communication interface, I would say, that communicate with the web services. So middleware integration, that was the first thing, that we can have the hosting foundation to work that those things. So second would be the middleware integration. So ASP.NET Core middlewares, which adds the functionality like authentication and logging, is a built-in OWIN middlewares. We have the middlewares, we can use that, and that allows them to be easily plug in into the OWIN compiled server. So that we can also do using the middlewares. The third thing which we can do is that is the hosting flexibility. ASP.NET Core application can be hosted on various OWIN compliant servers like IIS, Castrol service, or self-hosted environments, and from there we can use that. So once the question would be there, they explain the open web interface for .NET and its relationship to ASP.NET Core. So we can give three bulleted points: that the hosting foundation using the OWIN interfaces, middleware integration using the middlewares, and the third is hosting with different servers like IIS, Castrol, or self-hosted environment. Then comes the last part, that is the ASP.NET Core interview questions and answer for some of the experienced persons. Number one, describe the URL rewriting middlewares in the ASP.NET Core and its application. So URL can be written in previous languages like PHP or the other languages. I would say we have some mechanism to rewrite, but in .NET Core we also have that mechanism to rewrite the URL. So for that we are using the middleware. So what we have to do is SEO friendly URLs. We can have the URL patent URL which is available for our API, but we can use its SEO friendly URL so that the pages can be indexed properly in the Google, or it should be the SEO friendly. For that, rewrite the long parameterized heavy URLs into a shorter one. I mean, we have a URL, for example, saying API slash vendor slash customer slash something, two and three more levels are there, so we can shorten them. So that is known as a rewritten or shorten the URL, or it is a mechanism to rewrite. The mean actually the URL would be same, but once displayed over the web, it would be rewritten, and it should have so many other keywords as well. So it should be SEO friendly. Then comes the migration content. The seamlessly transitions user to a new content location without breaking is existing link by rewriting the old URL. So that can also be done by the migration content to rewrite the URL without disturbing the linking. Vanity URLs create a custom URL for specific marketing campaign or promotion offer. So that can also be done with the help of rewritten middlewares. URL normalization. So ensure the consistent URL format throughout your application by writing the variation like upper or trailing slashes. So in real, I would say the API endpoint, they might have so many vague or so many different type of naming convention or these type of things, so we can rewrite them to make it a normalized, so it should be symmetrical throughout the application. Then the legacy compatibility, maintain the compatibility with the older application that expect the specific URL structure by rewriting the new URL to match them. So that can also be achieved, that we have some older legacy applications and those are consuming those URLs, but now the new API had a different URL, so we can rewrite so that the older or legacy compatibility should not be impacted. Explain the concept of the application model in the in ASP.NET Core development. So that is also a good question, I would say, and you must know the answer because it is the question for experienced person, and if that is being answered, so the interview definitely came to know that you know the nitty gritty. So in application .NET Core application, model act as a blueprint for your MVC application. I mean, model is the thing in which the data would be transmit or transfer from one front end or view to the controller and controller to the view, and we can do whatever we wanted with the model. So that act as a blueprint. It's built by the framework of scanning your controllers, actions, filters, and routes. Think of it like a detailed backstage map that helps the actors performing their role smoothly. I mean, we are talking about the model. So these are the things which our model is performing. All the scanning of your controllers, all the actions, filters, routes, or these type of things, they are dependent upon, for example, the model which is having the data. For example, as example said, that it is a backstage map that helps the actors performing their role. So definitely, if your data is for only for the admin user, for example, as you may have given the example, so in that way, definitely admin user should be routed over there, and it should only be for the admin. And if the data is only for and that data contains the things which are only for a simple user, then definitely it would be for a simple user.